Good evening and welcome. This is 10 p.m. on NDTV. It's time for Verified. I am Ankit Tyagi. Three big stories that we are taking a look today on Verified. Our top focus, ladies and gentlemen, the violent face-off between Indian and Chinese troops in Arunachal Pradesh, the line of actual control in Arunachal Pradesh. In fact, that is going to be our top focus, a big story. More details yet to come on this. We'll also talk about how the MLAs in Maharashtra are enjoying security when the funds from Nirbhaya Fund, like the police vehicles, have been diverted to their security. And the question that we are asking is the MLA security over women's safety in Maharashtra? We'll tell you more about that. And we also will be talking about, once again, abusive language being used for the Prime Minister, the Congress leader there. And the big question is for either political parties, the Congress or the BJP, when will politics of hate and this abuse stop and politics of issues, people's issues, take precedence? We'll talk about that story as well. But let's start with the big lead that we are following at this moment on Verified. The top story, ladies and gentlemen. Indian and Chinese troops, briefly in fact, has a physical confrontation on the line of actual control in Arunachal Pradesh. This map that you see, this is the Tawang area, and here in Arunachal Pradesh at the LAC, what we have been told is on December 9, both the troops of India and China came face to face. Now, government sources have said that the face-off took place on December 9th, and this is after some physical clashes, fists. In fact, it was hand-to-hand combat, and what we are being told is 9 Indian soldiers, few in fact Chinese soldiers also have sustained injuries. Now, minor injuries have been reported on both sides, and the two sides have immediately disengaged from this area. This is what the sources are telling us. The face-off took place in the Tawang sector of Arunachal Pradesh, according to the sources, and this is at the line of actual control, which is contested by the Indian soldiers in a firm and resolute manner. Now, this is what the government is telling us. But remember, this is the first big clash between the Indian and Chinese forces on the line of control since Galwan incident took place in 2020. That is what the worrying point is. The face-off on Friday, in fact, that took place on December 9. Minor injuries have been resulted on both sides, have been reported on both sides. And like I told you earlier, both sides have disengaged. But this happened, and the inside story of what sources are in fact telling us happened when there was a larger than usual Chinese patrol party which came onto the Indian side. When they were challenged, when they were stopped, this resulted in a hand-to-hand combat situation in which these injuries took place. Thankfully, no weapons were used this time. Let me very quickly at this moment for more go across to my colleague Vishnu Shom, who is joining us with more details on this. Vishnu, over to you. Just give us a sense of what happened on December 9 and the repercussion of this clash between Indian and Chinese troops.
Well, the incident which took place north of Tawang is in an area where a large number of Chinese soldiers, we are told, even though that number itself remains unclear, they came in contact with the line of actual control, in other words, what is known as the McMahon line in Arunachal Pradesh. So they may have narrowly breached it, but there was a large presence of Indian soldiers. This is one of the most militarized areas or militarized parts of Arunachal Pradesh. So when this Chinese team was actually crossing over the line of actual control or came close to it, there was an Indian squad, a group of Indian soldiers, a patrol of Indian soldiers who intercepted them, and there were clashes which took place. There have been injuries on both sides. What we have learned is that the injuries are minor injuries, and that the incident itself was diffused as a result of meetings which took place between local military commanders, which is very much what the protocol is. But what is significant is that, to my understanding, it is the first time that there have been physical clashes between Indian and Chinese soldiers since August 2020. And those clashes took place in Ladakh on the South Pangong Lake side. And that itself took place after Galwan. Galwan, of course, was an altogether different scenario when 14 Chinese soldiers, I beg your pardon, when several Indian soldiers lost their lives, and at least 4 Chinese soldiers were killed in action, but we know that most likely many more were also killed. So the point is this, it's a contentious line of actual control, or in the case of Arunachal Pradesh, it's known as the McMahon line, also the LAC. It's confused, the line is confused, the Chinese have claims, we have claims, and when something like this happens, there is a certain protocol. There is a display of banners by the Chinese and by us saying this is our territory, go back. And after this banner drill, there's a protocol whereby soldiers on both sides do go back. And that's how the issue is dealt with. But obviously on this occasion, and as we've seen on quite a few other occasions in the past, there were scuffles which actually broke out. And in these scuffles, the Chinese sustained injuries, in as much as Indian soldiers possibly did. But fortunately, that situation has been diffused. It's not grown to become anything else, but I think it's fair to assume that that there is tension along the line of control, certainly in eastern parts of the country.
And what does this tension mean? Vishnu, thank you for joining us with that. What does this tension mean, and how is it going to play out in the next few days? To discuss that very quickly, going across to Mr. Suresh K. Goyal, former diplomat and Secretary, Minister of External Affairs in India. We also have Lieutenant General Raj Kadyan, former Deputy Chief of Army Staff, Commodore Uday Bhaskar, Director of Society for Policy Studies, defense expert, also joining us this evening. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us here on Verified. I want to start by asking you, Lieutenant General Kadyan, this has happened, after a long time. There has been series of meetings which have been going on to decrease tension along the line of actual control and the perceived lines for India and China. How do you now see this playing out, this incident of violence between both the Chinese and the Indian troops in the days to come?
The problem between India and China is that the border is not marked. The area is very difficult. It is not possible to identify each nala and stone and hillock which belongs to whom. But there has been an understanding from 2006 onwards that we patrol up to our claim line and the Chinese patrol up to their claim line. In the last 17 years, there had been no clash. The feature where the clash took place on 9 December is a Ganse feature about 35 kilometers northeast of Tawang. Chinese apparently came and occupied it, and it is in the Indian claim line, so Indians objected to it. That led to a clash. There may have been some firing. I'm not sure if there was no firing, but there's no fatality. There would have been injuries, but there's no fatality, which is a good thing. And both sides, the commanders met on the ground, and the problem was resolved. But this is not the last time that these clashes will take place. They have taken place in the past. China has shown no interest in converting the LAC into the international border, which India has been wanting. Once that is done, then there will be border marking, there will be pillars, and it will be clear which area belongs to whom.
Okay.
But Chinese, obviously, they have a long-term plan. They have never recognized Arunachal to be part of India. They claim that this is southern part of Tibet.
Right.
Similarly, Ladakh, they call it western part of Tibet. So these two areas, they will never accept the international border. The army has been doing a wonderful job, but army can only control the local situation.
Right.
They cannot solve the problem between the two countries. That has a larger dimension, diplomatic, economic, political. I'm sure the government is working on it. But this incident by itself, which may not be the last one, has been controlled at the local level. It was not allowed to be escalated.
But you're right there that this may not be the last one. And Mr. Goyal, I want to bring you in on this. What are the options as far as the government of India is concerned? We saw some very, measured steps being taken by the government of India after the Galwan incident took place. Now, what are the options on the table as far as the Indian government is concerned post this incident, sir?
Ankit, it's a very complex question that you're putting up to me. What are the options before the government of India? Now, these situations, the way they actually develop, the options also change the way they develop. Therefore, it's not possible to state at a given point of time that these are the options that we have and we will exercise these options. We have to really keep on watching the situation and go from point of time to the other point of time if there is any change and so on and so forth. Now, my understanding really is that, first of all, the border in the eastern sector was never settled really. It has been stable. It has been quiet, I would say, ever since 1962, and then minor incidents here and there, and they have taken place all the time. But it has been rather quiet, and therefore an impression has been created that this has become now actually the international border between India and China, but it is not. It is still contested. China has never agreed to the McMahon line, though the fact is that we have thought that in an eventual settlement, Chinese would agree on the McMahon line as the international border, some give and take here and there, etc., and with some settlement in the Ladakh, as an overall package.
Right.
However, the point really is that what we thought earlier and what actually may be changing are two different things now. Tawang particularly is important for China because Tawang also has the largest Tibetan monastery there. It has a particular association with succession to Dalai Lama. And for China, succession is an important political issue because if they accept the traditional way of appointing Dalai Lama or selecting Dalai Lama, they give up the control over the Tibetan processes.
Right.
And they cannot. So it's a very complex issue, but my sense is that it probably could be giving a message that, look, our claim is still there.
Yeah.
So don't think that everything is hunky-dory. And number two, not to let Dalai Lama be, resting that everything is going to be okay. So the challenge will continue.
Challenge will continue, and Komodo Bhaskar, in that aspect, when it might not be the last incident, we have only seen in the last couple of years Chinese aggression increasing on the line of actual control and on the contentious part. Does it have anything to do with what is happening inside China right now as well? A lot of unrest was reported due to the COVID restrictions. President Xi's, new term has also begun. Is there a message somewhere, or at least a distraction that Chinese leadership wants to create with such incidents?
Ankit, I would say that the historical record of what happened in the past is always a useful indicator, especially when we are dealing with the kind of complex issues that my co-panelists have already referred to. So I think you're right in drawing attention to the domestic situation within China, because we are aware that after President Xi Jinping, his term has been extended now, what seems to be like for an indefinite period, he has had to deal with the protests because of the COVID pandemic and what happened within his country. Now, there is a sense of deja vu of 1962, that if you recall the run-up to October 1962, at that time, Chairman Mao was also dealing with a number of issues which could be broadly described as domestic discord, and some of it was also seen as a challenge to him and his own, shall we say, grip on power at that point in time.
Right.
So we had October 1962. Now, I'm not suggesting a parallel. I keep saying that history rhythms, it may not repeat. But I think this is significant that there has been this kind of an incident where it's now being termed as a minor clash. Apparently, no ordnance is used according to the latest reports. To me, it's cause for concern. Particularly, I think when we felt that there was some kind of a rapprochement at the political level.
Okay.
India and China. And that seemed to be the signal that was being, at least, I think, the subtext of what was being conveyed in Delhi after India assumed the presidency of the G20. Now, if you put all of this together,
right,
I would say that for India, the fact that Arunachal again simmering is cause for concern, and the response. My sense is we'll even have more news in the next few days, Ankit. I think this is not the full story, because if the incident took place on December 9th,
right,
and you in the media are reporting it on December 12th, this is drip feed by the government of India, because they think that this is a sensitive security issue, and no reporter broke the story. So obviously there is a kind of, I would say, regulated dissemination.
Absolutely.
Which in itself is cause to me for some unease. Why should India in 2022 be doing something that we did in 1962, which is not to inform the country about what is happening? To me, that's cause for concern.
It is a cause of concern. Tensions are high, and as our esteemed panelists, in fact, were telling us that this heightened sense of alertness and much more seems to be coming out, what possibly will come out in the days to come. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here on Verified with your views on the current situation on the border between India and China, the line of actual control actually between India and China. Okay, let's move on to the second big lead that we are following at this moment. And that's the question, ladies and gentlemen, that we are asking. MLA security, is it so much more important to give VVIPs the kind of security that they feel entitled to, that makes them feel safe over the Aam Aadmi or the, the common women in Maharashtra? This question is being raised because it's a huge, political controversy which is broken out in Maharashtra. Allegation on the Shinde government is that police vehicles brought by Mumbai police under the Nirbhaya Fund for fighting the crime against women were used for the security details of the MLAs and MPs of Eknath Shinde Shiv Sena faction. The state minister, though, has refuted these charges and has called them false, but the fact is that there has been no audit as far as this entire report is concerned. First, take a look at what happened in Maharashtra and we'll talk more about that.
Why plus security for Chief Minister Eknath Shinde and all his MLAs since they formed the government in June? But these escort SUVs were bought with the Nirbhaya Fund and were meant to provide security to women.
महाराष्ट्र में ये क्राइम अगेंस्ट वुमेन बढ़ते जा रहे हैं. इसकी गिनती तो कल भी हमने दी है, मगर ये बहुत ही महिलाओं के प्रति आप एक तो उनको आप न्याय नहीं दिला रहे हो और उनको जो अधिकार है निर्भया स्क्वाड का वो भी आप उनसे छीन कर लेके जा रहे हो. और किसके लिए नहीं है? जो निर्भया स्क्वाड्स की जो सारे व्हीकल्स है तुरंत पुलिस फोर्स में जमा करनी चाहिए.
बहुत ही शर्मनाक चीज है ये और बहुत ही बेहया चीज ये है कि जो फंड सिर्फ महिलाओं के लिए यूपीए गवर्नमेंट ने दिया था. यूपीए गवर्नमेंट के टाइम पे एक निर्भया कानून पास हुआ था और उसके तहत सिर्फ निर्भया के लिए जो महिलाएं डिस्ट्रेस में हैं उनके लिए ये फंड है, वो डाइवर्ट न करे. इसकी मांग हमने इससे पहले भी राज्यसभा में और लोकसभा में इसकी महिलाओं ने की है कि इसका फंड का क्या यूटिलाइज होता है. महिला और बाल विकास मंत्री उसका जवाब दे.
जिन्होंने इस तरह से मिसयूज किया है इस चीज को, उनको इस्तीफा देना चाहिए और उनको माफी मांगनी चाहिए सारी महिलाओं से और निर्भया की परिवार से और निर्भया जैसी जितनी केसेस हैं, क्योंकि इन लोग इनसेंसिटिव लोग हैं. इस तरह से आप अभी क्या शब्द इस्तेमाल करूं मैं.
The central government started the Nirbhaya Fund in 2013, through which funds were provided to the states for women's security. Now vehicles that were purchased through these funds were used for day-night patrolling, but now the same vehicles are being used to provide security to the MLAs and the MPs.
Recently, after the molestation of a Korean vlogger in Mumbai or the pictures of a woman who jumped from an auto rickshaw, questions were raised about the safety of women in Maharashtra. But the Minister of Women and Child Development is in turn asking what the previous government did.
आंदोलन करने का उनका अधिकार है. वो पहले ये बता दें कि निर्भया फंड तो कितने समय से उनके 2.5 साल में निर्भया फंड नहीं था क्या? उन्होंने 2.5 साल में निर्भया फंड का क्या उपयोग करे, पहले उसकी ऑडिट करके लोगों के सामने आने दें. आरोप लगाना बहुत आसान है, काम करना बहुत मुश्किल है. मैं इसमें ज्यादा बोलना नहीं चाहता हूँ.
There is not a single woman in the new Maharashtra cabinet. And already the government is facing questions over using funds meant for women's safety for their own safety. In Mumbai, with Sohit Mishra and Rajen Dayalkar, Bureau Report, NDTV.
This story and these questions are being asked at a time when it's already on December 16th, it will be 10 years since that horrific gang rape and murder took place on the streets of the national capital in that moving bus, the Nirbhaya gang rape. At that moment, the expectation, the country was enraged. Everybody came onto the ground. The expectation was things will change. It will not be business as usual. Before I move on, let me very quickly tell you what is the Nirbhaya Fund. The Nirbhaya Fund was set up after the Delhi gang rape and murder in 2012. It was set up by the centre, a dedicated fund for women's safety. The centre, in fact, allocated about 1,000 crore rupees, which was to be given to various states for programs, for, various security measures that they were supposed to take place for the security of women. Initially, as I told you, 1,000 crore rupees were provided by the centre. On this, the funds given by centre to states since 2013 for women's safety. And what happened in Mumbai, these vehicles which were purchased by the Mumbai police, 30 crore rupees they spent on buying vehicles under the Nirbhaya Fund. They were supposed to be dedicated, a Nirbhaya squad dedicated for the safety of women, to respond quickly, to make sure that there is increased patrolling. 47 of those vehicles were diverted by the Maharashtra government, the new government in Maharashtra, to provide Y+ security for the MLAs and MPs of Eknath Shinde faction. Now, just in fact, to get more context on this, let me at this moment introduce, in fact, Priyanka Chaturvedi. She is the member of parliament for the Shiv Sena in Rajya Sabha. Priyanka ji, thank you so much for speaking to us. I want to start by asking you, you've seen the story about the diversion of the security vehicles by the Mumbai police meant for Nirbhaya funds for, in fact, security of MLAs and MPs of Eknath Shinde faction. How do you respond to that?
I must remind you of those, those days in 2013, and it is going to complete a decade, literally now, where the incident had happened based on which a lot of new laws were introduced to keep women safe, secure, and get them justice at the right time. And that is when this corpus was made, which was specifically, Nirbhaya corpus was specifically targeted for women, their safety, their protection, under which we had got certain funds for the state to ensure that patrolling in the cities of Mumbai at all hours is possible. All the cars that came in, cars were called in, and even two-wheelers were bought and deputed to various police stations. But now ever since this government has come, 47 of their MLAs who turned out to be traitors to the party were given Y+ security. Their members of parliament who defected are also given Y+ security. All these cars which were meant for patrolling, for ensuring women's safety, to be available for women whenever they put out a distress call, are now being diverted to safeguard these 47 MLAs who have betrayed their constituency, who have betrayed the state of Maharashtra, besides betraying their own political party.
But ma'am, the government's argument is they are ready for audit, and number two, they are saying that a small fraction of this fund has been diverted because the security arrangements were to be made. Their argument is that we have only used 1% of their 30 crore rupees, which was in fact distributed or given to the government of Maharashtra under the Nirbhaya Fund.
So I will talk about a record, but first I will tell them, even if it was 2%, 3%, or very little nominal number of cars that went out, not just for their security, 47 MLAs is one thing, the MPs another thing, plus for right now for deputed for G20 security that have gone out from the Nirbhaya based funds, and the cars that are bought under those funds was specifically for safeguarding, protecting women, patrolling for women and making them feel safe. So it is absolutely shameless if they say, oh, it was only this little percentage. It's a shame. And second, about our entire work towards women-led causes. We had 3 ministers in the cabinet. They have 0. Let's talk about, prioritizing women's safety and security. We brought in the Shakti bill, which is still languishing, and they haven't prioritized this. It's not even coming in this particular session. Thirdly, we had also created transportation for women, which was totally free of cost for girls who wanted to go to schools and higher secondary school in rural areas. They have abolished that. So there are various factors that had come into play at that point in time. Now, for another matter, there's the fight for vaccinating pregnant women. It was someone from Shiv Sena who fought for this and ensured that it was mandated by the central government when the BMC, the Mumbai Municipal Corporation, agreed to do that. So we have fought for those causes. Bully by Suli deals. A lot of women were harassed from Mumbai, from Maharashtra. We brought those people to justice. So they cannot preach to us about women's safety and security when they have a pathetic track record of speaking badly about women. And last but not the least, the cabinet ministers who are getting this kind of security are the ones who use abusive language against women. They use pathetic language and derogatory language for sitting member of parliament, Srimati Supriya Sule. 0 action has been taken against him. Now, let's talk about the other cabinet minister that they have, who was Sanjay Rathod, who was put down, who we had asked to step down when rape charges were put against him by the very same Bharatiya Janata Party. Today now enjoys a cabinet space along with the Bharatiya Janata Party in that cabinet. So their priority about women is laughable, and they should not be making allegations which will only expose them further.
But Priyanka ji, is it not true? You're talking about track record and you're talking about, your work record versus Eknath Shinde's. The fact is, in 2021, when the NCRB data came out, it said very clearly, and that time your government was in power, it was Uddhav Thakere's government in power, that Maharashtra was ranked number 3 when it came to crime against women. Maharashtra was, when it came to crime against women, including rape, Mumbai was the second city, which was after Delhi, was seen as the city, when it came to kidnapping, rape and other charges and other crimes against women. So your track record, it's not that everything was absolutely great. So how did you use the Nirbhaya funds?
No, let me also remind you, those were the harrowing times of COVID lockdown. A lot of violence was happening even within homes. A lot of problems women were facing even at homes. So I'm not even trying to justify this. I'm not even trying to say that, oh my God, we didn't do that or we didn't do enough. Maybe there's a lot more we need to do. But at no point does it all absolutely absolve these people from not doing what is their basic bare minimum duty. Every state government continues to try and prioritize. We prioritize that.
Priyanka Chaturvedi, thank you so much for joining us with those inputs, with your side of the story on this. The fact is, ladies and gentlemen, and this is what we are, in fact, putting out at this moment as well. 89 rape cases are reported in this country every single day. It amounts to about 15. One rape case in every 15 minutes. That's the country that we are talking about. And on the 10th, brutal remembrance of what happened in 2012, the government of Maharashtra and all of us need to ask, how much have things changed? If these are the statistics, then should all the resources and more not be put out there on the streets to make sure that women in this country are safe? A question that the Maharashtra government should be asking themselves. All right, that's all the time that we have in this edition of Verified. Before I go, I just leave you with these visuals of Shah Rukh Khan, King Khan. In fact, these visuals reportedly of Shah Rukh Khan reaching Katra for his visit to the Vaishno Devi shrine. Remember, he is on a whirlwind tour, going to various places. His movie Pathan also coming up for release, and Shah Rukh Khan hoping for divine intervention, asking for the blessings. That's Shah Rukh Khan going to, in fact, the Vaishno Devi shrine, walking all the way up to that shrine. All right, that's all the time that we have in this edition. Verified will be back tomorrow. Stay tuned. Thank you. Good night. Stay tuned to NDTV.